The 7 steps are seeing. The first step is about knowing who you are and what you were called to do. That one is all about vision. The second step is separating, and that is knowing who you serve and what you offer. It's about your target market. The third step is speaking, and that is about articulating your message, developing your elevator pitch, and being able to communicate what it is that you do. The next step is sharpening. This is about doing what you do best, and we talked a lot about your unique selling proposition, how you differ from your competition. Systemizing is working on your business and not in your business. It's developing a process. And we talked about system being an acronym for Save Yourself Significant Time, Energy, and Money. Sharing, and that was about getting the word out about what you do. How do you promote yourself? The final step in the 7-step process, we will be talking about strengthening, which is all about developing your team and having leverage. I really like this topic because one of the things that I found out in my practice was I've been doing it for a long time, and I really wanted to be in business for myself. I didn't want to work for anybody else. I have a short little story about how I got to this point. And simply, when I was in my 30s, I worked for an organization, and they told me that I had to come in and work on Saturdays. And not just me, the whole organization. So that was how they were going to increase profits. They wanted us to come in every Saturday and work. And I thought that was the most ludicrous thing that I ever heard, and they used the word mandatory. And I think it was at that point in my life that I realized that there was no way that I was going to continue to work for someone else when they could just arbitrarily make a decision that the whole entire organization had a mandatory requirement that infringed upon their personal lives, and it didn't matter to them. At the time, I was a manager, which meant that I did not get overtime. So working on Saturdays did not mean more pay for me. It simply meant more work. And so at that particular point in my life, I decided right then and there that by the time I got to be 40, that I would no longer work for anybody else. I didn't even really focus on that number, but lo and behold, when I turned 40, the opportunity came up again where I could lead the organization, and I did. And I tell you what, it's been a while now, but I tell you what, it's probably one of the better decisions that I've made in my life because it really has allowed me to live the life that I want to live, pretty much call my shots. Now, you have to understand that with rewards come risks, and so there are risks associated with you starting your own business, but it's been the most fulfilling and rewarding experience that I can have. And the reason I told you that story is that one of the risks that I experienced was while I was in an organization and I had lots of support and I was a top performer and I made really good money and I had a team of people supporting me and all of that stuff, when you decide to start your own business, particularly if you're in a business where you're a solopreneur and you don't have other people working for you, you end up not only being in business for yourself, you end up being in business by yourself. And I will tell you, until I broke the code on this one, for a long time, I kept saying, I love what I do. I'm glad that I'm doing it. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but oh my gosh, it's just me. I do everything. I call it the head cook and bottle washer. I did everything. I was the product, was the service, was the marketing person. So I did everything from financials to everything else. And what I determined was that when I was being the product, I wasn't really getting the business, and when I was getting the business, I wasn't able to service the clients. And so it's very challenging and very hard to do that if you don't have systems, and we spend a lot of time talking about our systems, and if you don't have the people to support you. So we're going to be talking about developing your team. And so how are you going to build that infrastructure around you so that you can deliver your services to your ideal clients without feeling drained at the end of the day? Bruce Tuckman described how groups are developed back in 1965, and then again he revised it in 1977. Even if you don't know the name, you probably heard about his model because it's forming, storming, norming, and performing. When you're thinking about putting your group together, especially if you're talking about a team that's going to be working together towards a common goal, what you're going to find is that there's going to be that first stage where everything is coming together, the team is forming, individuals on your team are going to be concerned about orienting themselves, they're going to be testing boundaries, they're going to try to figure out what the dependencies are, During this stage, they will form dependencies. They will focus on certain things like trying to avoid conflict and things like that. In this early stage of team development, the team really hasn't gelled yet. And not much is going to get done because when you think about it, you're not able to do your best work when you have to tiptoe around people and try not to hurt people's feelings and things like that. So the members are forming opinions and impressions about each other, and they will develop certain relationships with the leaders and other members, and they'll try to figure out what the standards are for the team. So again, not much work gets done in the forming stage of really just trying to figure out the playing field. The next phase is called storming, and during the storming stage, this is where there's conflict in the group, and this is where you start to see people's personalities start to rear themselves, and people start to choose sides, and it's possible that team members will start losing patience with each other. They will be, possibly some minor confrontations, and roles and responsibilities will show up, and certain things will be either dealt with right away or pushed aside. The members are really uncomfortable with confrontation, so some members might likely stay in an earlier stage because they don't want the confrontation that comes along with this stage. They will look for structure during this time, and they'll seek out what the rules are for engagement, and they'll really look for ways to prevent conflict from showing up again. So this is the storming stage when things are changing, people are trying to figure things out, and there might be some conflicts. You'll notice that maybe some stronger team members may conflict with each other and that sort of thing. The next stage is called the norming stage, and during the norming stage, people start to feel comfortable with each other. They start moving towards being more unified. So they understand what the rules of engagement are. They're clear about their roles and responsibilities and the agreements that they have about the tasks. The arguments and the conflicts that they had in the earlier stage have really enabled them to understand each other a little bit better. They understand what their skills and talents and abilities are. And since they feel more comfortable with each other, they start to express their feelings a little bit more. They start to express their opinions without feeling that they will be ridiculed or that there'll be any conflict associated with it. In this stage, the team members are going to be more inclined to listen to each other and more open to differing opinions, and they'll start to support each other's points of views even if they don't agree with them. The members will start to unify as a team. Since they put a lot of energy into this stage, they are really protective of the team. They are very suspicious of outside forces, especially any kind of pressure that's going to cause the group to have problems, revert to their old behaviors, or that would dismantle the team. So they're very, very protective at this stage. You'll probably even consider it to be like a clique. You've been around organizations where you're brand new to the organization and there's already a team in place, and you come up and try to be part of that team, and you can tell it's almost like walls have been erected and it's very hard for you to be included into that team. The next stage would be the performing stage. And during this stage, this is where, especially if it's a great team, you will see that there's a lot of loyalty in the team, there's high morale in the team, and not every team makes it to the performing stage. Sometimes they fall apart at the conflict stage and they can't get past that. This stage is characterized by trust. There's this deep trust that they have for each other, and because they have this trust, they're able to work together and they're able to work independently, knowing that if I'm working on a project, I trust that my other team member is also working on what they need to do so that when we come back together, we can move forward. During the performing stage, the team members are focused on getting the job done. That's the primary focus. There's lots of interdependence, meaning that I need you in order to get my work done, and you need somebody else in order to get your work done. So there's lots of interdependence, and roles and responsibility are more flexible. As changes come, they will adjust to meet those needs. At this point, everybody is channeling their energies towards getting the task done, and the group structure is really focused on completing the task. That's what the whole thing is about. Performing is all about getting that work done. And then, as I mentioned, in 1977, Tuckman came back and he worked with Mary Ann Jensen to adjust the model a little bit by adding one more stage, and that stage was called adjourning. And during this stage, this is where the team starts to dissolve. It can dissolve for many, many reasons. It could just disengage because of conflict or something like that, or it could be some outside forces that cause it to disengage. For example, if you think about corporate America and the reorganizing and downsizing and things like that, teams break up for a variety of reasons. And so during this phase, what happens is there's kind of mixed feelings. If you are adjourning because you've completed the task, for example, you're happy and elated that the job was done, the team worked really well together, and you've accomplished your goals, but now you're no longer together, so you're kind of feeling a sense of loss or grief associated with the fact that you'll no longer be part of this high-functioning team. So during this phase, team members really need some support in understanding that you can move on, and once you have accomplished something, it's okay to move on to that next thing. So some support may be needed there.